So now we're going to head back into our afternoon presentations, and we're going to kick off this afternoon with a group of incredible young adults who are going to share their experience of transitioning from pediatric to young adult and taking over their care. So with us today, we've got Jordan Kayla. Jordan is entering his junior year at the University of Florida as a biology and anthropology major. He's 20 years old and is from Jupiter, Florida. Jordan was diagnosed with oxidative phosphorylation disorder and fatty acid oxidation disorder at age 1. Kayla Madej is 29 years old and lives in Chicago, Illinois. Kayla was diagnosed with VLCAD at 3 months old. She has a BA and MA in education, in curriculum and instruction, and is currently an 8th grade science teacher. Alex Salser is 18 years old and lives in Sunnyvale, Texas, outside of Dallas. She is entering her freshman year at Texas Tech University, where she'll major in human development and family sciences and minor in music. Alex was diagnosed with LCHAD when she was 1 week old. And Tasia Racheski is 29 years old and lives in Massachusetts. Tasia is diagnosed with VLCAD. She attended undergrad at Boston University and is currently getting an MBA at UMass. As you can see, we have an incredibly talented group of young adults. So if we can bring them all on, and we will get started with our Q&A. Okay, so the first question that we want to ask is, adolescence tends to be a really, really difficult time. Your body's changing, and that uses a lot of energy. How did you manage transitioning time, balancing your activities and energy levels to ensure that you're able to maintain socialization with your friends? So who wants to start? Maybe Alex, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, I can. So one of the things as a teenager, I started experiencing that energy drain from the energy required in adolescence. But as we were just talking in one of our teen times, was that even though there were some things that made me different, even physically, just walking differently, I had some really great friends who were able to, who I found were my true friends, who came to help me in even like physically supporting me to get from class to class and things like that. Yeah. I didn't let my energy drain and physical abilities limit myself. I still did all sorts of crazy things that I love, especially band being my main thing. And so I think I haven't let it define me, especially during that time, because I just want to be a teenager and do what I love to do. But be smart about it in the process.
Absolutely. Jordan, how about you? I know you are in your early years of college, which is crazy, because when we met you were still in high school. So tell us what that's been like for you, because I know you have a really busy schedule.
Yeah, I think in order to cope with the energy drain, like Alex was talking about, was trying to create that good work-life balance and understanding there's gonna be a lot of give and take. And if you understand your body's limitations or what it needs, you can kind of incorporate that into your schedule. So if I know I need more sleep, then I'll try to make sure I get my work done at a decent time, and then I'm kind of building everything into my schedule. But then also, if I know that, for example, one day is me busy with volunteering or doing work or schoolwork or physically going from classes to get food, something like that, then I'll make sure I'm using different kind of accommodations like buses on campus or my own car, or and then walking less on those days, getting more sleep. And I know we were talking about in those teen sessions about when you're going to school, getting accommodations. So I got academic and housing accommodations when I went to school. That really helped me kind of create a system where I could thrive in, and then kind of be more independent when creating my schedule and incorporating all of that into it.
Yeah, Kayla, how about you? You live in a big city where I'm sure you're out and about a lot. You've got to walk a lot. How are you managing your energy levels?
I think the biggest key for me is just knowing myself. I'm very reflective on if I did push it and I don't feel good the next day. Okay, what did I do? What can I do in the future? And I just use, everything that I've learned throughout this whole journey. I was in the city last night with my boyfriend, and he knew I couldn't do the stairs, so we find the elevator. Yeah. So it's knowing those little shortcuts and tricks and having that support system too, because one of the things is sometimes you don't want to use the elevator. Sometimes you don't want to be different or having to eat the pasta. And I have a very good, like Alex said, I have a good support system where when I'm shopping with my best friend, she goes, we haven't eaten in a while. We should probably go do that. So even having friends that you trust and and who understand not everything, but understand enough to know what basics you need. That's probably been the biggest help is having my parents and having, people in my life that help me make sure that like they know the perfect amount of give and take for me. Yeah. And same, when I'm going out and about and doing stuff.
Yeah. Tasia, how about you? So Tasia, you can speak from the perspective of being in the workforce, right? And going from being in high school to transitioning to college life and then now adding work onto it. So how do you manage your energy levels, so that you can get everything done that you need to do?
Yeah, no, I think, and we've talked about this in the teen sessions as well. I think it's all about like pacing and kind of understanding your own personal kind of pace and really being in tune with your body and how you're feeling. So it's like one day I may be able to do a lot more than the other day. Or like for me, it's like if I know I'm doing something really active and like that's going to be harder on my body in the morning, I've learned over time, like don't pack another thing in the afternoon. Yeah. Like do something that's, use that as your rest time. And really, taking advantage. I mean, in the workplace, most workplaces, they, over time, you gain, personal time or you gain, vacation time and just like using that wisely, right? So it's like if you have a big trip coming up and it's gonna like maybe take the day before or 2 days before the trip to try to get ready and not stress yourself out with work and that. And obviously that's something that, you have to kind of get to over time, but just using your time wisely. And then also if you're going to be doing something active, like I know I'm always make sure I'm really hydrated and I've eaten. And I think Kayla brought up a really good point, like surrounding yourself with people who understand that. And like, I know, like I have a roommate, she's always like, have you taken your medicine? Like, I didn't see you take your medicine. Like what, like, and so it's like nice to have people who understand that, to be able to, function and do all the things that you do, you have to put in a little more work and they're there to like support you and help you.
Yeah, that's great. Welcome, Ali. So let me quickly introduce Ali to the group. So Ali's 23 years old. He lives in Boca Raton, Florida. He was diagnosed with VLCAD deficiency. He just completed his master's degree in biological sciences at Florida Atlantic University and will be continuing his education in August at the University of Pittsburgh. So welcome, Ali.
Hi, thank you for the introduction.
Absolutely. So tell us, I know now in undergrad, master's degree, and now you're going for yet another degree at the University of Pittsburgh. Can you talk to us a little bit about how you manage everything that you have to do in a day without draining yourself?
Well, COVID right now definitely helped because of being able to stay at home, and whenever I'm tired, I just rest and it's all online. But when before that, it was difficult because I would go to school every day. Pretty much going to school, a full day of school at college was, it was tiring. Whereas a lot of other people would just go to school, do what they need to do, then go out at night and then pull all-nighters and stay up and study. I couldn't do that. Most of my schooling was just school study. And my friends that were like very, very school oriented were able to relate to that and just hung out with me to study, would go to the library to study. And it was still hard even then, because sometimes if I got a cold, my whole life would have to stop. or if I got the flu, I'd have to just go to the hospital and stop dealing with it. But I realized that working through all that hardship, but still putting in the effort would get me through college anyway. Whereas a lot of other people who had no problems didn't put in the effort, and they had a hard time getting through. So I realized that it's not, even though this was kind of like a handicap, it wasn't completely stopping me. I got through college and then my master's, and I think the most difficult time I'm going to have is now when I go to Pittsburgh, because I won't be at home with my parents having their help. So if I get sick, it's a lot harder now. I have to like really decide, okay, you know what? I don't have that extra hand to help me. I have to just not go to certain places, take precautions way before I get, like, I can't say I'm going to, you know what? If I'm a little tired today, it's okay. I have to say I cannot get tired at all, which is going to be hard. But luckily, I'll be working with Dr. Vockley. So if I have to take days off, I'm sure he won't be too disappointed. But other than that, yeah, I think it's just been a lot of hard work that's gotten me through it.
That's great. I mean, and I think the key is, and this is something that's echoed throughout the conference, is you have to know your body and listen to your body. Absolutely. And you have to find your people, right? Mm-hmm. The people who are going to be around you, who are going to be supportive, who aren't going to make you feel bad when you say, you know what, guys, in your case, Ali, I can't go to the beach today, right? I've got to rest. I'm tired. And you not feeling guilty or feeling bad because you can't do that. But instead they'll say, okay, hey, we'll come hang out with you and we'll just sit and watch a movie or whatever you need to do. So those are, I think, two of the important things that we keep hearing echoed throughout all the conversations that we're having. So Ali, let's talk a little bit more. And maybe I'll let Alex segue into this because I know she's been really new to this. And Alex, I might be telling a little bit too much of you. And if I am, please tell me. But so for you guys going away to college, you know, becoming an adult, turning 18, now you can make your own medical decisions. And how have you transitioned into taking control of making those decisions and having the confidence to know that you're capable of making those decisions on your own? Especially when you're going to be away from home. And Alex, I know for you, literally almost to the day you turned 18, you were faced with that decision and were able to make a choice for yourself for the first time. Do I need to go to the hospital or not? So can you talk a little bit about what that's like and how you make sure you feel ready to make those kinds of decisions for yourself?
Yeah, so transitioning to being my own advocate started, I was about 13, and my mom would come alongside me to translate teenager speak and things like that for the doctors. And then after a couple years, going into the doctor's office and saying, this is what's wrong with me. I need your advice to work through what we need to do. And then that kind of, as I was about to turn 18, that whole year I had dealt with a couple different sicknesses that I couldn't recover from, but it didn't look like my childhood illnesses. So we were learning between me and the medical professionals I was working with the differences between childhood Alex and now adult Alex, and the differences in how I'm dealing with those even regular illnesses. And so just kind of listening to my body and feeling the same way that I would feel needing to go to the hospital, just without some of the symptoms that other people can see, was kind of challenging to be able to express that when there's nothing else to kind of support, what I'm trying to say is happening inside. Yeah. But my medical professionals said, okay, if this drags on, let's try it. Hospital intervention. I was able to do that, and it worked, and it was reassuring to myself that, what I think needs to happen should happen, and maybe a little bit quicker, so a lot of my life isn't taken up by just feeling down and not well. And so then that happened again right when I turned 18. And I said, you know what? If this doesn't get better in a couple weeks and then at 2 weeks, I'm going to go to the hospital because that means my body can't do it on its own. And so it's definitely a learning curve. And then listening to the body, and sometimes it can be difficult because it's something that you can only feel. But then I also gained a lot of trust and credibility to those different circumstances that happened, so that I can learn from each one, and me and the doctors learning together how we can, I am almost 19 now, and I do basically tell the doctors what I would like to happen to my own body. But at the same time, I do appreciate their medical professionals' advice and basically be the Alex team and work together on how we can best help my body get better again.
Yeah, thank you for that, Alex. Jordan, how about you? Because you're newly into being away from, in college, and the last couple of years, what has that been like for you as you've been the decision maker for yourself?
Sorry, I had trouble muting myself there. Yeah, it's been a wild couple of years being in college, like transitioning to here. I'm a good amount. I'm like 4 hours away from home right now, so it's still like when picking a college, that was definitely a factor. Was trying to branch out and become independent, but also still be close enough to where if things started to take a turn, that my family could get here within a day. It was definitely something we looked for when we were picking schools. But yeah, I've been in charge of making my own decisions since I've gone to school. I lived in a single dorm my first year, so I was kind of had my own space, and then now I'm living in an apartment with a few roommates. So then it's like kind of becoming part of that normalized life of being with other people and kind of incorporating their own stuff too. But when like Alex said, I think early on I started taking over more of a role when I went to doctor's appointments and working with my parents too. They would help make sure I'd fill in any gaps that I was leaving when talking to my doctors. But we would also make into kind of learning experiences where, okay, in the future, what are you going to say if they ask you about this, or how are you going to describe this? And then that just started steadily building up to taking on more of a role as I've gone on.
Bless you.
To when towards the end of high school, making my own appointments. And then now in college, when I need to purchase like medication or supplements, I'm finding them myself. I'm doing the purchase forms. I'm contacting my doctors for appointments. I'm trying to figure out if I need to have my doctors closer to my parents, or if I need them have them nearby my school so I can get to them if I have them here. So it's kind of creating that balance of still learning, but also you're kind of crafting your own life for yourself. So you need to make sure you have these independent skills of, if X happens, what are you going to do? And then just building up towards then. And just a lot of different learning experiences. And if it doesn't go right, you have like we all said, we have a nice support system to lean back on.
Yeah, and I think you made an important point, Jordan, is to have a plan, right? So know ahead of time, if this happens, this is how we respond. This is who we call. Knowing who the people on your team are, how to connect with them, and as much as we talk about transitioning from young adult to a full adult, mom and dad will still always be there, right? You'll always have that support team, but it's important that you learn to take control and manage your own care. So Tasia, share with us a little bit about now that, okay, you're, I hate to say this, but you're the senior member of this group, and you've been making
That's
these. You've been making your decisions for quite a while now. Tell me now knowing what you know, what do you wish you would have known? What are the questions you wish you would have asked? And maybe some of the conversations you may have been a part of that maybe you weren't, so that you were best prepared to start to make these decisions on your own.
Yeah. So that's a tough question, because I relatively early was, pretty involved, and that's something I'm super grateful, to my parents for, is, from the time I was, 5, 7, I would go over a friend's house, and my parents would, they were definitely not helicopter parents. Like they would prepare me, but they would, you know, send me out there, and sometimes I would make mistakes and I'd come back and I'd kind of learn from them. So that's how I've always done things. Like for me, when talking about this specific topic, honestly, it just comes with like experience, which obviously none of us want to have these like traumatic experiences, but sometimes that getting through those is what really we learn from. And you learn more and more each time. Once you're 18 too, it's good to realize that, you know, the doctors can't really talk to your parents anymore. Like it's your health and they want to hear from you and like expect to hear from you. So like making sure that, you know, you're prepared, which I don't think I was. I think I learned probably more like post 18, just kind of having to get thrown into it and learn more each day. Now it's like something where I kind of like, if I go to the ER, like I know generally what questions are going to come up, what things they're going to start talking about that they're not going to understand. And I've learned how to like explain those in a way, you know, that makes sense. And, you know, I know, like you were saying, the points of contact, how to get a hold of people, how they best respond, making sure like when I go places, I have my protocol. I guess if I could have done one thing different, it would have just been to maybe get like a little bit more outspoken a little sooner, right? So learning that, you know, using my voice and, you know, using those skills, you know, it's nothing to be ashamed of, and just kind of like doing it a little sooner, because it's taken me a while. It took me probably all through college and maybe even a little after to really get comfortable, especially talking with like medical like professionals. And also I find like authority figures, right, is always tough. So like if you're a kid and you're trying to talk to an adult or a professor or like someone who's in kind of like that authority position, just knowing that you know your voice is as valid as theirs, and like being able to have that conversation.
Absolutely. Kayla, how about you?
Okay, so I have been very fortunate. I've had the same team of doctors since I was 13. And before that, I had the same set of doctors since I was 3 months old. And so I've always known how to get, you know, I can email my dietitian whenever I need to. I know who to reach out to. And I'm also very fortunate to when I do feel like I don't know what to do. I mean, I know what to do, but when that point comes where it's like, I don't know what to do, Mom. What do I do? I have my mom who's been dealing with this for 29 years like me. So she can calm me down and say, okay, well, what's going on? Then what's the plan? So, and I felt I was very, very prepared. It wasn't really a transition for me just because, you know, since I was diagnosed 29 years ago and it was brand new, none of the doctors really knew anything about any of it. So I was always having to explain it. I mean, I remember being in the ER room and Mom and I would literally say, okay, whose turn? And so we could explain it to the doctors. And I was a 6-year-old saying, I have very long chain of steel clay dehydrogenase deficiency. I need my D10. I need my CK. And for doctors who think they know everything, to hear a 6-year-old say that thinks I'm crazy. But so I've always been very fortunate. I think the only thing I really know now that I wish I knew is about the hospital trauma and anxiety and that component. You know, a couple of years ago, I just had a massive amounts of anxiety. I went to a therapist and I was telling her, you know, I grew up in a hospital and I was always sick, and thankfully that's not the case anymore, but your brain holds on to all that trauma, whether you know it or not. And so when I can't sleep at night, well, maybe it has something to do with the fact that you woke up every couple of hours in the hospital for how long. So for me, that's been the hardest thing, is the anxiety now that I'm older, because when you have anxiety and your metabolism is faster, well, what can I do now? Do I use one of my strategies? Do I take my Xanax? That's been the hardest thing, is I think that when I was younger, I think I was having anxiety, but they treated the VLCAD because that was the problem. That was the issue. You need to treat the VLCAD, but then I'd be in the hospital the next week.
Right.
So I really wish I knew, or the social worker or somebody was like, okay, let's take a look. Let's see what the anxiety is and what's going on there, because that's a lot for a little kid to deal with. And then now being an adult and being like, okay, now I have the VLCAD. I just talked to my therapist this week. I have the VLCAD under control. That's easy. I can deal with that. I can't deal with the unknown. I don't know how to handle things that I haven't had to deal with for 29 years. So that's the only big piece I wish I would have known.
Yeah, the mental health piece is a critical piece to this, and the stress and anxiety that causes. And so just to give a segue real quick to one of the other sessions, Dr. Boyce will be with us next following this to talk about the hospital trauma and what that looks like and how to manage it and how to prevent it. And then also tomorrow at 10 a.m., he will be there just to talk one-on-one with the teen group, no recordings, no parents, to just really talk honestly about the things that you're struggling with. And he can talk you through that. So I would encourage all of the adults to encourage their teens, even if they haven't signed up. We can get you connected so you can join that session tomorrow.
Even if you don't think there's anything, I would still go just in case, because like I said, they had no idea I was having all this anxiety until now. So even though you might not have that issue, I would still go.
Yeah, it's really important. The mental health piece is really, really important. And we want to make sure that we provide an outlet to address that. So thank you for that, Kayla. That's really important. Ali, how about you? What do you wish you would have known if you could look back?
Well, I mean, it would have been nice to know how much energy I actually had throughout every event. But I don't know, honestly, looking back, I think I wish I would have known how much things didn't matter. Like high school, for example. Like in high school, the memories you make matter, but I felt like the stress of trying to be included, or somebody thinking this, or worrying about, oh, what are people going to think about me if I'm sick or whatever, didn't matter because everybody went on with their lives anyway. Also being part of like some like outing also didn't matter that much, because the friends that you were going to make, your close friends, are the ones who either accommodated or were still your friends after you didn't go. So I think, that's the main thing I wish I would have known. But
that's really important, right? Because as a teen, you feel so much pressure to be included and part of the group and invited to all the events. And right at the end of the day, in the scheme of life, it all doesn't really matter. What's important is that you have those people who are there to support you. And we hope that beyond this conference, this group of young adults will, know that they're going to be here and they're going to continue to be able to gather and have, support calls and opportunities to support you. So even if you feel like you're not getting invited, we're here for you. And this will always be an outlet where you can always feel safe and supported and comforted, and that you belong, because that is important.
Yeah, and I do really appreciate that. Like now I know we're having like more group chats, we're having more connections, and it's starting to become it's nice because you could also like at any point just kind of reach out. Like I've actually so many times I've talked to Tasia about like, hey, how are you feeling? Oh, I'm in the hospital right now. How are you feeling? And it's like, it's a good feeling, not that the other person's in the hospital or that I'm in the hospital, but that like there's somebody who gets it.
There's a very limited amount of people in this world that understand what you have gone through. And like, yes, you have your parents, but it's different. Like, I just wanted to say, like, I kind of took a step back from all of this because this is my entire life. And then I started getting back into it, and I talked to Alex. And I was like, oh my God, like, you get it. There's not very many people in this world who get it.
Yeah. It really matters. And that's why we do this, so that you guys always have these connections and this level of support, however you need it. So that's really, really important. So tell me a little bit about, speak to the parents for a minute and help the parents understand how they can best help you prepare to take this next step in your journey and to become more independent and confident and taking control and helping to manage your care.
I would say just keep being as supportive as you've been. And luckily, the good thing that the parents do is that it doesn't matter how old you are, you're still their baby.
Yeah,
and
that's right.
They talk to you and take care of you exactly how you were when you were a kid. And oftentimes I feel like when people get older, they forget that they still need that. They still need their parents to treat them as their child. Some people think, oh, you know what, I'm an adult. I don't need it, at all. And although it's good to have a little more freedom and personal responsibility, it's still good to know that they're there for you no matter what. So honestly, I think at least my parents, and from what I'm hearing from everyone here, the parents seem to know what they're doing, and they keep on going with that.
Anyone else have thoughts?
I would say to the parents that your role will never go away. So don't freak out too much because we'll always need you. Even though, I was advocating for myself, my mom's still there for that support. Doctors now will write in my paperwork, Mama's great for historian data, because she's great for the history that, I don't remember when I was born,
Yeah.
And so, there's always going to be, I'm going to be 5.5 hours away at my college, but there might be the time that I'm like, Mom, on the phone and ask her, for some advice. And, maybe, she's going to have to drive my medication to me every month. So there's always going to be a role for the parents. So don't feel like you are going away anytime soon, but also it's going to be okay to let them kind of take some independence on, so that you can go on vacation or do your own, hobbies or something. I told my mom she needs to go on vacation just for her or something.
That's nice. That's nice. So I'll speak to you guys as a parent who has 2 children who are in their 20s and one that is almost 18. It's so a thing for the kids to remember is that as you guys get older, our worries get bigger because the consequences are bigger. So always let us have a role because we need that. Just to give us peace of mind. I have with my kids, I have a 3-minute rule. So every day, 7 days a week for 3 minutes, they have to call me on the phone just so I can hear their voice. It can be quick, just, hey, hi, Mom, how you doing? Because I can know in that 3 minutes if everything's okay. And as long as I know everything's okay, we're good. So don't forget your parents need that peace of mind too, as much as you guys are anxious to grow up and be on your own. So that's my word of advice to the young adults. So can you talk a little bit about transitioning to college and how you sought out the necessary accommodations that you needed and what that process looked like and what were those accommodations that were available to you as a college student?
So I can speak on this since I applied to college a few years ago. I've been here full time since then. So when I was applying to colleges, we created a list of schools that matched my academic interest, that would be nearby, kind of create that kind of boundary of ranges of where I wanted to be. So like I said, my school right now is about 4 hours away. So it's far enough away that I'm kind of experiencing my own new things in life, but it's still, I can drive home and drive back in one day. I've done it. My parents have done it multiple times. But then when I was applying to schools and doing tours, when we were on the tours, we would make appointments with the disability resources, what it's called at my school. So then we would go there and talk to advisors there and see what kind of accommodations they offer, or what they even just think of my general situation, of what they, because we don't always know exactly what I need. See what they have in their experience of having students from different backgrounds come in, and what situation they can do to kind of create that you can thrive. So I was able to get both academic and housing accommodations. So create the housing accommodation, allow me to have my own room and have my own temperature control, then kind of create a good situation there. Academics, I had instead of, we would have like at my school, we have exams off for example, you could have a chemistry exam at 9:00 at night. Everyone goes to one building, splits up across campus. I was able to have one place I went to the test every single time. So it kind of just created stability there. And then I was able to talk to them about dietary things versus having a meal plan, or just having a kitchen in my dorm that I could use to kind of do my own meals and be responsible for my own, what else to eat that specific day. So I think when applying to schools, it's just important to ask and see what they have and see what their opinions are, and see just based on their past experiences.
Yeah.
I had very similar accommodations when I was in college. I picked a college that was close to home. But I did that for two reasons. One, my brother was in high school and he's an athlete, a star athlete. So I wanted to be there for state championships and stuff. And then I didn't want to keep my parents. I'm close with my family. So if anything were to happen, I was there. But the microwave, I had a microwave in my dorm, which was amazing because I did get to figure out my own meals then. And then when we started there, I had to make sure I signed off paperwork to make sure that if something were to happen and I ended up in the hospital, mom was able to contact, because the biggest difference is you are 18, you are responsible. They don't contact your parents for any circumstances. And the kids make, I made my own decision. My mom was allowed to reach out and talk to certain people, but she couldn't see my grades. I was very, not that they were bad, I was just very aware, and I wanted to make sure that I could tell them that. So making sure that you sign the paperwork saying, which actually ended up well. I ended up in the hospital for about 3 weeks, really, really sick, and mom took care of all the school stuff. So it's very, very important.
Let's talk a little bit about what those documentation is that you're going to need to have in place to make sure that if something does happen, that the right people can be there to make the right decisions. Does anybody want to talk a little bit about some of those documents that have needed to be put in place as you head off on your own?
I can talk a little bit about, I did it much later than I probably should have. I should have done it when I was 18, but, medical proxy is one of the documents. So, you can do medical proxy at every hospital that you go to. They have their own form. But sometimes it's good to have an overarching form, your own, that kind of doesn't matter where you are, what state, what location, because you never know when an emergency is going to happen. To have that document kind of set up and set in place, because I think that was one of my mom's biggest fears was well, what if you can't make your own decisions, right? It's she's it's not that I don't think you're capable. She's just what if you're not in a medical position to be able to do that? Then what's going to happen if you don't have this form kind of in place? So that was one document I got set up. And then like Kayla mentioned, schools do have, with their offices, they do have documents you can sign that say, this is, information that they maybe normally wouldn't release, until you sign that document saying, yes, we can release this to your parents, or they can make these certain decisions for you in your absence or something like that. So those are really useful. And I think sometimes they go through the academic offices, other time it's through the disability services. I think it just kind of depends on, which, how their school is structured. But I definitely, and I reiterated this in the teen session, definitely take advantage of the kind of accommodations that a college offers. Like they're offering it to so many students. Like don't feel like you're weird or anything for like taking advantage of it, because I made that mistake and I did not do it the first 2 years of college, and I just made my life a lot more miserable than it needed to be. And it wasn't until I got to the college and I kind of saw the office, I met other people who had accommodations. I was like, wait a second, like they have that, like this would help me too. And I kind of like explained my situation, and then things like food or like class schedule were a lot easier to align with like my lifestyle.
Right. And the disability services at the school should be able to help you with all of those accommodations. Whereas you guys went through that process, was there anything like unique or that was abnormal, or things that you hadn't provided before that they required you for proof that you needed these services?
I was able to transfer all my like accommodation stuff from like high school and earlier, and I think they saw the documentation for it, so they really didn't question me or anything. But one unique thing I had was again, like they offered me accommodations I didn't even know were possible. Like they would offer me transportation, the kind of accommodations where I never had to deal with that before because I did virtual school, and then I went to like I was driving, so I was kind of responsible for my own transportation. But all of a sudden they were thinking 5 steps ahead of me of, okay, you wake up, how are you gonna get to class? Or move on, how are you gonna get to the dining hall, those kind of things. So I think it was definitely it was good to have a sit down meeting with them and talk and go through an entire protocol with them.
Right, because you don't think about, like, I know this was a big issue when Jordan, you talked about this, is that you have one class on one side of campus and then the next class is on the other side of campus. And how do you get there? Because just getting to that class will take every bit of energy you have, and now you can't sit through class. So you've got to think about all of those different elements and kind of literally walk through your day and anticipate what challenges that could potentially create for you. So I also want to share, we have a couple of really great resources connected to our community. Annette Hines and her husband, Mark Worthington, are going to, they were available at 12 o'clock, but they're attorneys and they understand rare disease. We also have Eileen Sullivan, and Eileen put her contact information in the chat and is open to helping and talking to anybody who wants to understand, all the necessary documentation that you need to make sure that you have in place for your young adult as they move on their own. So we make sure in the event of any situation that you have the necessary documentation and the right people can be a part of the conversation and have access to what they need to make the decisions in the event that that becomes an issue. So I appreciate that, Eileen, for you sharing that information. And I would encourage you to reach out to Eileen if you have any specific questions. Eileen is an attorney and she is an FAOD mom, so she understands it oh so well. Okay, so let's go back to friends a little bit and talk about how you guys have conversations and help people understand your FAOD. Because for many people with an FAOD, you look at them and you think they look fine, there's nothing wrong. So how do you as young adults help people understand your diagnoses?
So I think this little anecdote would help. Recently, I think I would say in the last 6 months, I started dating this girl. And she's very understanding, and I've explained to her my condition. Like before we started dating, she kind of knew something was up. She thought I had a weird diet. So then I explained to her more in detail, and then she would and then at some point I got hospitalized, and then she would see me at the hospital with the IV, just kind of walking around, and she'd be like, "You seem fine." Like she didn't accuse me of lying, but she's like, "You seem fine, like somebody would think like nothing's wrong with you." And I'm like, yeah, I'm just kind of used to whatever the feeling I'm having is, like any kind of muscle pain or anything like that. So I kind of just know how much I can move around and how much I need to rest. And so I think even till now, it's not fully clear because there's a lot of science behind it that's not understood. And then there's a lot of like expression. Like you think, oh, somebody has a condition, they have to just like, they're just like bedridden almost. But that's not always the case. Sometimes there's different things you are able to do and not able to do. Also, I don't necessarily always want to say how I'm feeling 100% because it's like, I can just deal with it. You know, I don't need to make somebody else be like, oh, I hope you feel better. I hope you're okay. Because sometimes that's like, feels a little bit, I don't know. It feels like almost like you're asking for them to do that.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think with friends, they kind of understand now, like all my friends, especially, they understand that, oh, if I'm getting sick and I just say I can't go to some place or do something, they're just like, oh, okay. Because they've seen me get sick a lot and they understand the severity of it. But I think when they see me like another month that I'm just like perfectly fine, they're like, I don't know. I feel like they feel like me getting sick is just a random event when I do feel it gradually building on. So I don't think there's like a perfect way to explain it to somebody because they end up just seeing both sides, your healthy and I guess unhealthy side. But yeah, I think it's just very difficult to really express it to them without them feeling it.
I don't really go into very big details, just because the guy that I started recently dating, he's like, well, what's it called? I go, it doesn't matter. You're not going to know what it is anyways. Like, so I just explain it that, you know, your body breaks down sugars, uses it for energy, then takes off the fat. That's why people work out. My body can't break down that fat. And thankfully I'm dating an EMT. So he kind of has like some type of like understanding that, you know, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's there. My closest friends say there's a look like I can tell the difference when it's a good day and a bad day with your medical condition. When I text my friend I don't feel good, the first thing, yell cat or something else. I think it was harder to explain with COVID. You know, when COVID hit, you know, mom and dad were like, you're not leaving this house. Like, you aren't. If you need something, we'll get it. Because other people don't understand, like, if I get it, we don't know what will happen. You know, normal people are getting really sick. Who knows with an FOD? I've dealt with friends that are not friends and don't believe me. I even had one of my friends, because I was in a C7 trial, who came with me to the doctor, who saw the meds and saw everything, and still afterwards did not believe me. And I'm not there to change your mind. You know, this is what I have. If you don't believe me, too bad. Like, if I feel like I got hit by a truck today, that's fine. I am a teacher, so what's really nice is that kids are so resilient, and my kids know when Miss Madej doesn't feel good, she's in her seat, or Miss Madej has to eat snacks in class. So it's, you know, I don't say, oh, I have this. I just say I have a medical condition. Like, and that's all you need to say. So my closest friends know what I have. But that's how I explain it. Very simple and basic and then if it's someone who has a little more medical knowledge, then I say it's an enzyme. I'm missing an enzyme. But that's all they need to know. They don't need to know like every detail or anything. So that's kind of how I handle it. But people suck sometimes. And, you know, I remember my mom having to hug me because I was crying because my friends were being dumb, or, you know, it was really hard in high school having friends, really hard, because I would be in school and then I'd be out for a month and then I'd be back and those friends moved on.
Right.
But you know what? I don't mind having the LCAT. I'm a better person for what it is. And, you know, I feel like I've done more good with it than bad. So, you know, it is what it is. And I think all of us have a huge support system and have found those people. And there are people in the world that are going to believe and going to be there for you.
I've
Yeah.
taken on the idea of like quality over quantity, because you know, in middle school I was like, I have this big friend group, but you know, they stopped inviting me to stuff, you know, as I had more energy drain. And but it was my closest friends that, you know, would come to my house to play Uno with me when I was, you know, couldn't go to school and things like that. That those are your true friends, and they're the ones that, you know, yes, I've known some of them for a long time, and even when my condition, you know, does some sort of unexpected turn that I'm still trying to figure out, you know, my friends can pick up on that this is something I'm still, you know, is constantly changing. There's bad days, there's good days, there's I don't know what this is kind of days. And so I was in the hospital like for a month this past year, and during COVID, no visitors. And so one of my friends saw me at this coffee shop, and he just came right over and hugged me. He didn't even ask about social distancing or anything. He was like, I just know that was really hard for you, but also it was really hard for him. Just because my friends who are my support system, they're kind of right along for the journey with me. And because my condition is so much more visible now, I'm using a walker, a wheelchair, or a scooter. I seem to take an approach of there's not really a way to avoid talking about it because there's obviously something wrong with me, but I'm very positive and kind of just go about my life without it, you know, standing in the way and defining me. And I can kind of take the approach of, you know, by talking about it with someone, they can get really fascinated about it, and then it also kind of spreads more awareness for that's like another person that knows what LCHAT is, and things like that. That I've sort of taken that approach on, because you know, it is visible in my circumstance.
I just want to say also something that Kayla said. I also have a best friend who he lived here in Florida with me for like 15 years, and then since birth, and then he moved to Illinois, and he's actually visiting right now with his family. And to this day, even though we've lived separately for like I don't know how many years, like 7 years, he can still tell when I'm tired before I can tell. Like he'll look at me and say, "You are very tired. You shouldn't go out today." And I'm just like, "What are you talking about?" And then an hour later, I was just like, "Yeah, I don't think I should go out today."
Yeah, he knows you. He's your person.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to have those people. Like, it makes you feel better too, that you're not crazy sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
Like that you don't feel good. And you know, my best friend was reading a book about a baby that had MCAD, and it talked about MCAD. It said a whole description. And the biggest thing for me is when she sent it and goes, "Oh my God, look, it's in a book." Like it was just a regular book. And I was like, and for her to pick that out was like, oh, okay. Like it was kind of cool that, you know, your friends learn through you, and you don't even realize it.
Yeah, it mattered to her, right? So
Yeah,
we've got about 6 or 7 minutes left. So I'm going to ask each of you to just take a minute to go around and just give us your best piece of advice of making this transition, taking control of your care, becoming independent. And it could be advice for parents, or it could be advice that you want to give to the other young adults. So Alex, you go first.
Okay, so my life is going to change in 2.5 weeks when I go off to college, and I joke that I'll be fine until my parents drive away, and then I'm going to freak out because I'm in charge of keeping myself alive. But I definitely think the most important thing to know is it's not going to, you know, gaining the independence and listening to your body comes from trial and error, as well as time. And the support system is important in that as well. And then as I've sort of taken on, you know, living with a physical disability, to just continue living life to the fullest. and keeping, it might be a bad pain day, things like that I'm going to take a step back and things like that. But, maybe instead of going out somewhere, my friends come over instead, and things like that. So I think it doesn't define you. And parents, it's going to be okay. You always are going to have a role for your child for sure.
Tasia? Thank you, Alex.
Yeah, I think for me the thing I've learned most is just to like take things day by day. Like don't get too far ahead of yourself. So like I know that's just my personality. Like I'm a very planning oriented person. And I'm sure that comes from, having the LCAT and having to plan out like every single aspect of your life ever since a very young age. But there's always going to be things you can't plan for. So it's like make a plan, be prepared, but don't let it make you like neurotic to the point where, you're scared to do things or you're scared to try things or you do something different. Because yeah, that's the last thing you want is for, VLCAD to hold you back. You want it to be something that I'd rather do something and have to do it with like modifications and kind of do it my way than not be able to do it at all. So just getting to the point where you can embrace and really embracing like the times when you are feeling well and being able to like enjoy things, really like taking those moments in and remembering those and having a great time so that, the times you're not feeling so great, that's what gets you through is the prospect that you'll be doing those things again in no time.
Yeah, great. Thanks so much, Tasia. Ali?
So one thing I've learned, and I mean, I guess this applies to most people, not just people with FAODs, but specifically to people with FAODs as well, is that health comes first. So no matter what, whether it's for you're having a good time or whether there's like a really important argument that you need to figure out a solution for, or you're having just some really important test coming up, no matter what it is, you have to, have a little restraint and just say, okay, I need a break right now. You need to tell the person you're arguing with, like, hey, you know what, whatever we're talking about doesn't matter because I'm not feeling well. You need to talk to your accessibility services or your professor or teacher and tell them, hey, I am having a medical problem. Whatever it is, health comes first because all of those things will not they won't matter and they won't be resolved if you're not feeling well. So,
Absolutely.
And that's a lesson I've had to learn, and I'm still learning. Like I still go through school and I still go through even relationships, and I'm just like, I need a break right now from anything that's happening so I can recuperate and then get back into it.
Yeah, so, that's important. That's great advice for all of us. Jordan, how about you?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've learned is honestly through all these struggles and life experiences, it leads to a lot of, that's where the most growth happens is I think through the struggles. And then I think you can see through everyone here, I think growing up with this kind of chronic illness leads to a lot of self-reflection, a lot of self-awareness that leads to traits that carry you a long way later on, like self-discipline, advocacy. We have a lot of adaptability and kind of being able to schedule in chaos into our schedule and being sure that we're always in a situation to thrive.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks, Jordan. Kayla, how about you?
I think the first thing I want to say is that you are doing a great job. Your kids are going to rely on you for the rest of their lives and your life. And they're probably too young to say it, but they thank you. I mean, I know probably every single one of us here thank our parents for everything that they have done and create and making, it as easy as they can for us. I think that honestly, just trust them. We have a FOD and it's different and it's special, but we know how we feel. And so just trust, sometimes, my mom always tells a story, like I wanted to stop my meds one day and she goes, you know what, I'm not arguing about it. And then I got sick and I learned my lesson. So just trust your kid and letting them have that independence. And we are capable of anything that we want to be capable of. You know, my brother plays baseball. I'm not going to be playing baseball, but you know what? I can be there to support him. And, you know, just because maybe one sibling has a FOD and one doesn't, that's okay. We both know that we have our own areas that we go into. So I think the biggest thing, though, is that, you know, thank you, parents, for being there and being our support system, because I don't think we'd be as awesome as we were if we didn't.
Yeah.
Even if your kid doesn't say it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kayla, you're right. You guys are awesome, and you are capable of anything, regardless of your diagnosis. And you guys, the 5 of you, are a true testament. You have accomplished some incredible things against some really, really tough odds. But you've persevered and you've made it through, and you are a great example to the other young adults of what's possible, right? And we are very, very lucky at MitoAction to have you guys all as part of our team to help us serve the young adult community. And so we will be in touch with all of our attendees and let you know the ways that we're going to continue to stay connected so our young adults can continue to have these conversations in a safe, protected environment. And moms and dads too, you know, we'll chat and make sure that we're all getting through it together as well. So thank you guys all so much. Don't forget, again, tomorrow at 10 o'clock, there will be a session with this incredible group of young adults for the young adults to have their own private conversation. So I encourage everyone to attend and be part of that. And